So welcome, man. It's great to have you here.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
So the idea here today is we're going to have just kind of an open chat, like a real chat about, this whole startup craziness that me and you both know pretty well by this point. And I think I want to kind of set the stage for everybody here because, well, first of all, I really appreciate you coming, down for this and spending some time with us to share a little bit more about your experience. But I want to kind of go back to the theme of what the last couple of days have been about. Like, we kicked it off with Gina, my co-founder. She talked about what's the A side and the B side. And the A side is like kind of the story that is out there all the time. And then, the B side is some of the real struggles that exist, right? Because that's the reality of it. And I talked about adapt and overcome in that process. So that'll allow us to have a really real conversation. But I think that the reason why I mentioned this is because we caught up the other day. I don't know, it was like a couple weeks ago maybe.
Yep.
And I was, I think it was about 3 p.m. and you said, "Hey, so Brian, how are you doing? You remember this?" You said,
"Yeah, I do."
How you doing? And I said, actually kind of shitty today. I think I looked in the mirror. I hadn't shaven. I hadn't showered. And I was just like knee deep in a bunch of shit that I was dealing with, trying to figure out as a startup founder. And so that's the reality of where we're here. And so we're going to talk a little bit about some of the challenges, some of the struggles. Let's definitely kick it off.
Let's do it.
I want to first talk about. Let me go back about a year and a half. I don't know if you remember this. We were having lunch in Mexico, and at the time you had told me something. You said, "I'm about to go in kind of this cocoon of building the best fucking team in the world," is what you said to me when we were having lunch. Tell me about the last 18 months, because you haven't been doing a lot of chats and you're like, "I want to go under the radar." So thank you for coming out of the cocoon here, out of the cave of, execution. And tell me what the last 18 months, what you've been up to and what does a world-class team mean to you?
Yeah. I always had this obsession for really discovering talent and being able to work with truly exceptional people. It's something that I'm very passionate about. I think at the beginning of 2020, I started to realize that we had achieved amazing things. We have an amazing team, we have an incredible culture, really a culture of builders. But I think if you want to take the company to the next level and you really want to continue to amplify that vision and the ambition, it's very important to partner with really exceptional people and some of the best people you can find in the world to come and tackle some really hard challenges, because building Rappi is not for the faint of heart. It's a pretty complex business, very intense. And I just went on that journey with a lot of focus, probably 40% of my time dedicated to just being able to understand what it takes to bring these people and identify them. And I think what has happened since then is that you end up having this incredible symbiosis between world-class operators that are coming from, just the best companies in the world that we all know about, working with a very, very good entrepreneurial local team that has achieved amazing things. And then you start seeing how that learning goes in both directions, right? How do you actually scale a company at this level from this size? And how do you actually build in Latin America at a local level? And I think we're in the very early moments of that. And it's probably going to be something that we're going to continue to see compound for decades to come, because I honestly believe it's the first time in the history of building companies in the region that this quality of people are dedicating their life to build here. And what that's going to happen is going to compound for many, many years to come, because you learn very, very fast and you improve super fast when you go on this journey. So yeah, it's been a lot of building. And because of that, probably been the best 7 quarters in the history of the company. So I'm very, very happy about that.
I definitely, the caliber of talent that's come out of Rappi, obviously, and some have been very entrepreneurial and there's a lot of really high quality people. How are you, what is your pitch when you're bringing on some senior executive? Because you were able to go and bring on world-class talent that was working for huge global companies, very successful companies. And how did you close some of these senior execs? I mean, how many people have you hired kind of at the senior level over the last 18 months? And, what's your what's your pitch that like you're able to kind of hypnotize them and get them to jump on board with what you're building?
So let me back up a little bit, because it's not only the pitch. So I think Rappi has always had that obsession with working with truly exceptional people. Rappi has a culture of founders, of builders. I see a lot of former Rappi alumni here. I'm super proud of them coming out and building their own companies. There's many of them that are still building at Rappi and being able to almost operate as entrepreneurs inside the company. So that was always very important to us. And these are people that have really high spikes of talent. These are people that came because they really believed in a purpose. These are people that took challenges when we really focus on amplifying their ambition. And it's something that I just push very hard. I think we can always give way more to truly achieve our maximum potential. So that was always part of who we are, what I am, and I always did it. Now, when you're talking about working with some of the best operators in the world, I take a little bit of a different approach, because the challenge when you're hiring these top executives is that they speak super nice, they say all the right things, they sound super smart. You probably send them a business case and it's perfect. But in reality, you need to assess different things. And a lot of the things that I focus on assessing is trying to understand what are the true intrinsic motivations of a person, what really drives them, what are their inner pain, their struggles, how was their childhood, how is their relationship with mommy and daddy, how was their teenage years, situations in life in which they went through a lot of really hard things and how they actually behaved. I think that's what that really reveals character, and that reveals people's intrinsic motivations. And if those things don't click, then you can bring whoever shiny title from shiny company, and they're really not going to have the desire to go and build with you in the trenches. They're not going to have the desire to learn, to be curious. So you really have to assess that. And then once you identify that, the pitch is about really partnering with them and really giving them a voice in the room, a voice in the small table, making them part of your team, letting them run, giving them space to lead, giving them space to change culture as well and help the company evolve. And then obviously they need to understand the vision, and they need to understand where we're going. And I think Rappi has potential to be one of the most iconic companies ever built in the region. So really them understanding that that's achievable and that's in our control and that's doable if we really work together. So all of those things together is what's needed to bring these people and actually make it work, right? Because that's another challenge.
I think it's fascinating how you're delving into things so deep as childhood trauma on things and understanding people's intrinsic motivation.
Yeah.
My parents are both psychotherapists, so I'm going to do a little psychotherapy with you here. Where does that come from, man? That's I'm going to flip the script on you here.
You're gonna grill me. I just believe that setting yourself to build something crazy and something so ambitious, I think it's driven by, let's say, an optimistic side that wants to have an adventure, that wants to create, that wants to have a meaningful life, let's say, and find purpose. But there's another side of that is just pain and insecurities and maybe that's the relationship that I have with my dad and then even taking a lot of your history. Like I lost my dad when I was 20. I had to live through a lot of really hard things early on. I was broke. I had no money. I had to pay myself through school. Then I arrived in New York with $3,000 of my previous company savings, and I knew 2 people, and I was literally surviving and getting by. And I think those things just are very important because they give you a sense of drive and a sense of determination and perseverance. And a lot of building companies is also the ability to take pain, and not only take pain as a masochist, but take pain and learn from it and really take it into action and improve. So that's why I try to identify certain traits in people based on that lens, let's say.
All right, that's fascinating to see, and I think that you can really, when you understand someone's psyche like that, I remember when I was when I was trying to hire somebody, I would do this little exercise where I would have them create a spreadsheet. This actually I learned from our VP of engineering at Viva Real, a guy named Marcel Viana. And when I hired him, he actually did this like deep spreadsheet of all of the things that he valued in his life. And then he ranked them. He assigned a numerical value of each one. And then he actually created like a multiplier for the things that he cared the most about. And he literally made a decision, which is a very like logical. And then there's, because it's hard to make decisions because you kind of get pulled into an emotional decision. And so that's how a lot of people make decisions. So I actually would ask people to do the same exercise, and then also would give me insight into what they cared about, right? Which is finding out what someone cares about, is so important. If you're talking to an investor, you should be spending 3/4 of the time asking questions because you got to peel back the layers, right?
Well, I think it comes down to self-awareness and self-knowledge. I think the best founders have this ability to be incredibly determined and just say, we're going this direction, let's go, even in moments of a lot of uncertainty. But also at the same time, you have this self-awareness that you really are aware of your flaws, of what you need to improve, of the things that you don't know. And I think seeing that is what really puts you on that path to continue to grow, because if you are really not learning faster than the growth of your company, you start becoming completely obsolete. Like you start becoming a pain or something that is stopping the company for development. So it's really important, I think, to take that time to be very self-aware and go in that journey of really understanding who you are and where you need to improve and what you need to do more of, what you need to do less of, so you build a team around you. If you don't have that, then it's hard to really acknowledge and grow. And I think it's just very important for your self-development. So
this conversation is getting a little deep, and I feel like it's Friday, and I feel like I don't know. Are you thirsty? Can we get a beer here?
Yeah.
Can we get a couple of beers up here?
Do it, please.
I don't know if we have any beers around.
Cerveja, por favor.
Actually, you know what? I'm gonna let's see if Rappi can maybe help us out. How long is the
Tri-Turbo? We'll get it in 10 minutes.
All right, let's get some beer. Let's see if we can get some beers here for this little fireside chat. Sounds good, right? Everybody approve of that? All right, let's do that. I think that this is, it's something that, kind of going deeper in that, and you talk a little bit more about. One other thing I wanted to explore with you is, as we had dinner the other night, there's something you mentioned, and I wanted to kind of dive a little deeper in this. You talked about this thing that you called killer instinct. Tell me what that means to you. What does killer instinct mean? And are founders born with killer instinct, or is it something you acquire? Tell me more about what your philosophy is around that.
It's, in my view, when you're building a company, you really need to feel that there's nothing on the other side, that you're really giving your life and you have no safety net. I think when you have that clarity of thought and that need for survival, then you go for the kill, right? And as a founder, that means doing everything, right? From building the product, building the team, selling the product. And I think you do things with a certain determination and intensity that I think are super important when you build a company. So can you learn it? I don't know. I think a lot of the founders actually have that in some sort of way, right? And it manifests in different ways, but I kind of think that you almost have it in some sort of way, and it maybe shows out in different traits of your personality, but it's that sense that you're gonna make it happen and you're gonna do whatever it takes to make it happen, and you're not gonna stop, and you're gonna persevere, and you're gonna continue to push harder no matter what the challenge you face. So that's what I think about when I talk about killer instinct.
How much of it is projection of like, I have to visualize this, the whole fake it till you make it thing? I mean, I think every founder in here has felt some kind of imposter syndrome at some point, right? I mean, so many times, actually, in my case, I remember for several years, I was convinced that I was not ready to be CEO. Like, I just remember that, you make the excuse in your head, I didn't go to the best school, or I didn't, and you're just like, you have this constant self-doubt. So how do you kind of, because it's attractive when you project the confidence factor, because the confidence attracts other people. How do you manage I mean, I doubt that you've been this confident your entire career running Rappi. So how do you kind of manage one thing is to have killer instinct and just know that you're going to deep inside know you're going to make it happen. But the other thing is like, what about those lows, man? And you're like, and you're not confident about that.
Yeah. Oh, so I'm full of insecurities and I struggle with every day and it's something that you are aware of. What I found too is that as you meet people that have done really great things in life and have built many of the products that we use and have built just great companies, you realize that they're also figuring it out. Like no one really has cracked it. No one really has a great handle of things. We're all just figuring it out in some way or another. So I think understanding that also gives you a sense of, okay, this is normal what I'm feeling. Like I'm going through the same thing that these guys that we all see, and we're all like, wow, they're full of the same doubts, full of the same questions, full of the same challenges. So I think it's good to remember those things, right? Like you never get to a place, I believe, where you're like, oh shit, super confident, this is it. And frankly, if you get there, probably you stop learning too, which is another problem.
Yeah, no, for sure. You've got to, the moments of my life when I think that I've got this shit figured out and I'm like, yeah, I'm killing it right now. Life just comes and goes, wow. Yeah. And it's like, no, you don't know shit. Totally. That's definitely the constant. When you mentioned this, it made me think of something as you were sharing about, how, you realize that other people don't have it figured out too. I remember when there was a transition at some point when I realized that I went from kind of worshiping my investors in the beginning because and I'm super grateful to the investors that bet on me. Like, yep. and I definitely learned a lot from the investors, but yeah, that they're just trying to figure it out too. And the dynamic changes, right? In your relationship with investors. In the beginning, I remember I would go to like board meetings, and I remember my first board meeting, I was kind of like terrified of the board meeting. I didn't have any knowledge of like how to build financial projections. And remember I show up at the meeting and, I realized that the investors, those insecurities that you have, they didn't invest in me because I had some kind of like genius of financial modeling. They invested for other reasons. And so kind of think the dynamic changes. How is the dynamic change? You guys, I had some investors, but you guys have investors. You got a montón, como dicen en Colombia. Tiene un montón de inversionistas. How does that relationship change over time?
Yeah, it's been a journey. I mean, we've worked with very, very good firms throughout the founding history of the company. Very early on, some of the best ones, and I think like you learn a lot. You understand what they really do well, what they don't do well. At the end, I think it's really important that you are in control of the company. You are making the decisions that are better for the company. And I think the job of the investor is to go with you in that journey and support you and really understand your psychology, to understand your business, and to try to guide you to make the best decisions and not necessarily impose. I think having confidence to also push back and make sure that you're driving the decisions is also very, very important. And what ends up happening as you evolve is that like also the relationship with investors change. There's some investors that are more focused on earlier stage, some that are more relevant as you get towards later stages, and identifying which are the ones that really understand you and understand that path, that understand the business, that understand you. They keep on becoming quite important in that in your life as a company and in your life as a founder. And I have very good relationship with my investors. I would say probably the ones that are like very, very close in our board, maybe two of them, people that I trust, that I have a very, very close relationship, that we understand each other very well. We know who we are, pick up the phone when shit hits the fan and things break, and that's the type of thing that you need to build. It's really about building a team at the end, right? The only difference is that they sit on your board and they are gonna say no in certain moments where they need to, but in reality, they also need to work and they also need to be part of what you're building. And I think thinking about it as more of the team that you're building, I think is really important. And if you see it with that lens, you're probably gonna also make better decisions of who to partner with. You're gonna be working with someone for many years to come. Do you really want to work with that person? I think it's an important question to ask.
Yeah, I think the dynamic changed a lot over time. In the beginning, for any of these, founders here that have maybe raised a Series A or something, in the beginning, your tendency is to like kind of want to sell your investors, like because you pitch them, and then like the continuation of that, your first board meeting is you're like, things are going awesome, but the reality is that you need to build a relationship with your investors, one of trust, one where you can, be as vulnerable as you can, because you're not going to be able to get any support if you.
I remember after a Series A, it had just closed with Sequoia. We were very, very small. And I tell the story about Sequoia. It's a
I want to hear the.
But yeah, I think we closed the round, and then the first 3 months after closing, we were not growing at all, and the product was breaking all the time.
I was an early user. I remember it was in the beginning.
It was very tough, and then we started really going deep and understanding why. And what we end up finding out is that we're managing a lot of the catalog and a lot of the way we were paying our restaurants with Google Sheets. So it literally was spreadsheets. And there were two things that happened. One, we ran out of rows. So we literally discovered what was the limit of possible. And the other thing that we discovered is that as soon as someone just tweaked one cell, it collapsed the whole catalog of Rappi. An investor that doesn't understand that shouldn't be in this business. I mean, that's just very common to any company early on.
All right, so we've covered a handful of different topics here. Let's actually talk about something that I became aware of just the other day, which is interesting. So, there's been some adjustments in the regulatory environment, right? So, I mean, Rappi, has a very strong foothold in several markets, but Brazil's a tough nut to crack in a lot of ways. And tell us about the recent kind of regulatory adjustments here that, allow for you to kind of come to Brazil a little bit more aggressively. Tell us about what these recent changes have been and what that means for your Brazil business moving forward.
Something that I'm very, very impressed with Brazil, and I've been for many years, is just the quality of certain governmental institutions or regulators. I think when you look at what Brazil has done with Banco Central and PIX, it's absolutely second to none in the world. And I think CADE is a regulator that I also think is incredibly sophisticated and technical. So what ended up happening is that the market situation in Brazil was not favoring consumers, not favoring couriers, not favoring restaurants in particular. And as a matter of fact, 6 months ago, the regulator ruled that exclusivities were banned in Brazil. And now what you ended up having is an opening up of the market in which a lot of these really big chains are now open to work with other companies that do delivery. So that's I think incredibly important for consumers. I think it's incredibly important for couriers, and I think it's incredibly important for the restaurant industry as a whole, because you need to have options and you need to be willing to decide who you really want to work with as your discretion, not because you signed some sort of exclusive contract. So what ends up happening is that now all of these restaurants are partnering with us, and you have a very interesting moment happening in Brazil with many of these restaurants being part of Rappi's ecosystem, opening up and operating in a different way. So I'm very excited about that. We have also a change in Brazil. We acquired Box. Felipe is around. He's the founder of Box. He's leading Brazil. He's an amazing entrepreneur, and we're very happy to be partnering with him to build the market. So that's also very, very interesting. And we're doing a lot around Turbo. We're very happy with our Prime program in Brazil, which is the one that has the largest market penetration, meaning Prime customers are percentage of total customers. So that's really, really great. Turbo for groceries, but also you guys are going to start seeing a lot of innovation in how we actually apply Turbo technology to restaurants to deliver like fries in 10 minutes. So that's going to be very cool. And we have a very interesting business as well around offering logistics for businesses. So one of the things that we loved about Box is that they build one of the most spectacular cultures for couriers that I've seen around the world. Like, I mean, you find Box entregadores, with their tattoos on their arm, and and like a true respect for their journey and the work they do. So we're bringing a lot of that culture into everything that we do around logistics, which is something that I believe is absolutely core to Rappi. So I'm very, very excited about it. I think we have a lot of work ahead in Brazil, but I think it's a really great moment. And on top of that, you have Rappi very strong, in a very good position as a business with very strong markets, with a very good team, so everything is coming together in a really interesting place. So
we'll talk a little bit more about kind of where you are as a business now, but let's go back a little into the past. You kind of had casually mentioned Sequoia, which, Sequoia's got a pretty good track record in Latin America, Nubank, Rappi. Tell me about the early days. Like, how did that happen? You landed that investor. I remember because I think I might have sent you or Simone a message because I had seen an SEC file or some kind of filing when there's a round that happens. I think it might have been Simone. And I'm like, you guys just raised from Sequoia? Because I got some.
I cannot believe you're checking SEC filings.
Yeah, well, I'm a weirdo, but I got some kind of notification or something that I came across, and it showed that you guys raised that, or was like $10 million or something. I don't remember how much it was.
Yeah.
But so tell me about how that.
Yeah,
actually...
that was Rappi's A round, and the way it came about, it was very, very funny because I first we're doing terrible on that process. Back then, I mean, Latin America was so different. Probably was like $400-500 million of venture dollars coming to the region. So I know it's rough for many, but probably going to have $5 billion of venture dollars to the region. It's still a 10x based on what it was in 2017. So we're doing terrible. No. So I go to New York from San Francisco. Simon stays in SF. And I'm coming back on those horrible red eyes, seat 33 in the middle of the rows. And then I go into the plane and I see one of Sequoia partners in business. I'm like,
which partner?
It was Alfred Lin. So I see him in business and I'm like, okay, is that him? I don't know. Maybe I'm trying to connect the dots. If he was in New York, maybe Airbnb is having some sort of regulatory issue. So maybe it was him. And I spent the whole flight debating in my mind if I should go and pitch him in the plane. He was sleeping, so thank God I didn't do it. But as soon as we landed, I rushed and I was like, hey man, I remember something I said, I'm building the Gojek of Latin America, something short, whatever. Give me your email. Whatever, okay, sure. And then we sent out an email and we started bombarding them with other founder friends that we knew. And then the process started going fast and we had the final partners meeting. So you need to go there, you need to present to the partnership, and everyone needs to vote anonymously. And so it's a pretty important meeting. Immediately prior to that meeting, and which is in Sand Hill Road, we were at DST, which is a very close partner of ours. And we did that meeting. We ordered a car. The car is not coming. We're like, fuck, I believe we're going to arrive late to this meeting. The car is not coming. So I tell Simon, dude, let's walk. But you cannot walk in Sand Hill Road. It's just way too far. So we're walking and I see this truck coming and I'm like, well, I guess we're going to have to hitchhike. So we hitchhike and the car arrives and I'm like, okay, it's this amazing Mexican guy driving, love him. We open the door and I look and it's a septic water tank truck. So we're like, let's do it. So we get in, I'm checking my pockets. I'm like, shit, I think I have $20. And he was he drove us out and then he was gonna leave us in the entrance, but it's not the entrance. Sequoia has a building. So you were gonna walk to the parking and he was gonna drop us in the highway, let's say. And we look at each other and we're like, no. Can you please drop us in the front of the building?
So this is on Sand Hill Road?
Sand Hill Road, but we said, no, please drop us in front of the building.
I know that building. Yeah, you pulled up into that.
So we're like, listen, we want to arrive in this car. It's like, yes, we want to. So we literally drove there. We arrived in the parking lot. We had an amazing photo. And I think the partners were looking at it, it's like, what the fuck is going on? These guys are insane. But the meeting went well. So that was...
Can we get that photo?
Story.
Do we?
I have it.
Can you?
I took a photo of Simone getting out of that car, so I'll have to look it up.
Can just for my marketing team, can that be when we read about this chat? Can that be the hero picture of Simone and Sebastian? Latinos helping Latinos, right?
Latinos helping Latinos. Yeah, that Mexican is in my heart.
That's an amazing story. Well, it's I mean, it's just the journey, right? Like it's kind of represents the struggle, right? You don't have a ride. You gotta make do. You gotta be, what's the lesson there?
Well, I mean, I think it's a lesson of really connecting to those entrepreneurial values. I mean, I find myself thinking a lot about this, like being really independent minded in how you think about it. I think in startup world, sometimes it's like a cacophony of advices and it's the same shit, part of my English on LinkedIn and Twitter. And I think it's really important to mute all of that stuff and really focus on your job as a founder, on that focus, on having that intensity and that killer instinct and that perseverance and being able to go through any challenge that you face. And that shows every day. I mean, at the end, you're making all of these decisions every day and you're trying to overcome a lot of challenges all the time. So I think connecting to those like unique values of entrepreneurship, I think is very important, and connecting to your true like self, without getting too philosophical, but that's really what drives that behavior when you're a founder, So it's not so much what you read or what that person said or what that person did, like I think it's really about finding what's that for you. And I think you end up building better products, better companies that are really connected to what it is that you want to bring to the world when you're building a business. So I think that's one of the lessons.
So you got to mute the outside world sometimes.
Yeah, for sure. Like be open-minded, learn, but at the end, you need to figure it out yourself.
There was a panel, I think earlier, I don't remember who it was with, but there was kind of like listen to kind of, 90% of the, you can listen to all the feedback, but a good founder kind of takes, 10% there. And, you've got to have conviction. I don't remember who said this. I'm just remembering from earlier today. It's been a whirlwind day, but you've got to have conviction on what you're doing. So a founder that's kind of stubborn and focused and is there. But at the same time, you've got to have a bit of openness to be able to kind of let things in.
Yes. It's really, really critical, and live that every day, and find your own path, and act it, and like really pick your heroes. Like find people that you listen to, mute the ones that you shouldn't be listening to. Identifying that sooner rather than later is probably pretty important. And yeah, that's just something that I think it's worth remembering.
What last couple questions here? Who inspires you? Sorry, it's a tough question, right? At the end here, or who do you? I'll let you answer that question. Or who do you call when you're knee deep in shit? You can answer either one, whatever you.
So I think when shit hits the fan and you really have problems, without mentioning names, I would say couple of my closest investors. And then I've managed to also build a network of people that I trust, that I admire, that I respect, that have succeeded in different parts of life, let's say, and also in different businesses. I found myself learning a lot, not only from startups, but even traditional businesses. I find that super interesting. And there's just a lot of lessons, from all of these companies that have been around for so long that are I think super, super relevant. And I think heroes, I mean, it's a tough one, but it's really about people that have really lived their true self and achieved what they really wanted to do and live the life that they wanted to live. I really like that. And I see it in certain business people or artists, like people that had really that independent mind and freedom, and they really went hardcore to live on their own terms. I find that fascinating. And people that did different things as well, not only different companies, but were able to succeed in different realms of life. I find that also super, super interesting.
How do you, when you have like the social pressure of, how do you carve out your own path? Like, what's the, what's the advice you have for the founders in the room that, maybe you have the social pressure of like, you're a founder. We heard from Daniela Pinacci the other yesterday, and all of her family and friends were like, "Okay, yeah, that's enough. You should quit now. Like you've been doing this for a couple of years. Be responsible. You have kids. What is your advice to those founders that are in the struggle right now, that are just trying to get through and push through and make it happen?
Yeah, I mean, one advice is really to see how far we've come, right? Let's mute the market and all this stuff, but really let's understand where we are. I think Latin America now has companies that are really world class and that are not some Me Too of this other part of the world. I mean, when I see Rappi, it's hard for me to even see companies that I can really learn from in my category from around the world. I think Rappi is very, very innovative, and when you look under the hood, the amount of technology and how fast we build it and how fast we operate, that's very, very unique, and I think really world class. There's other companies that can say the same thing, so I'm very excited about that. I'm very excited about the new generation of builders. There's people that are first, second time, third time founders that are going to do really, really amazing things. I'm very excited about the people that have built in these companies that are going out and starting their own companies. There are people that have seen scale, they know how to build product, they know how to build teams, they know how to operate, they know how to sell. The quality of talent is really, really high. Also in Latin America, we're just survivors by nature. I mean, crisis, yeah, sure, like happening all the time in all of our countries. And we just keep on moving. So I'm very excited about that. So I think it's just like a message of optimism. I mean, I always think how much we can do and how can we really do more, and pushing people to be more ambitious in the good way. It always surprises you. People can give so much of what they think they can do. So I'm excited. I'm really excited about that part. And I think if we stay true to that, we're going to see amazing companies being built, and we're going to see a lot of really strong success stories in the years to come. We're really just starting. I mean, you and I know how it was. I don't know, 7 years ago,
15 years ago for me.
Yeah, like it's so it's been so little years that I think a lot of really amazing things are going to come.
Well, listen, I think that the future of those companies are here in this room. I think that, that's a great place to end on optimism. I think that the future value creation, the potential for economic progress and social mobility will come from this motor that is entrepreneurs. So I think everybody in this room is, as a collective, we're all part of that. And I also want to just highlight something about you that I remember very clearly when I first met you and Simon the first time. We were in Madrid. We were both going through Endeavor. I think it was our Endeavor panel.
2012, probably, no?
Okay, no, was it? No, 2013. No, a little after that. But yeah, years ago. No, it was after that because I think it was. Yeah. Anyways, it was one of those years. I'm getting old, and I remember meeting you guys and just thinking, I had gone on a trip to China with Monashis, and we'd visited all these Chinese companies, and I came back feeling like we're not thinking big enough. And then I remember meeting you guys and I was like, well, these guys are thinking really big. So I think that if there's any kind of inspiration that we can leave this room today, it's that, I'm going to quote Giorgio Paolo Lemon here. It costs the same to dream big and dream small. So I think we should all dream really big to make the future happen. So I think we'll end it on that. And thank you, Sebastian, for joining us.
Thank you.
All right.